Here it says Molly Team Awesome at the center with the microphone at the bottom of your square.
I don't know.
Was that too distracting?
Yes.
Oh. It was the day at work.
That was
I was wearing pajamas.
Oh,
Same here. I wore a sweater with a top hat and my legs are and I had a pajama pants on.
Oh no, I had ethics school this morning and I high key wore like my blazer, my tweed blazer with like a button up and I was wearing owl like like I was fully done, like what's up?
You know, I don't listen to your watch.
I did.
My standard issue black over. I was like, yeah, they couldn't see you from the top.
All that matters. Why are you moving? Why is that moving?
Hi, Alex.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm great.
Is that Alex Johnson?
That is Alex Johnson.
Is that Molly?
Oh, that was Billy.
That's what we do when we see each other on campus. We stuff.
Miranda says break a leg. She's via the YouTube.
My first day.
I love kitchen light. I don't know, is it?
Well, it looks so much better on the TV. You forget a lot of people in here go to the
Yeah, it makes my eyes nice.
You okay with that?
Yeah, I'm fine. Yeah, this makes my eyes hurt a lot. Also less watch. Yeah, I didn't know there was so I spent your eyes with it. Yeah. I really just yeah. You take them out. You sleep, right? No, I haven't taken them out. Grayson! I keep forgetting. I don't even wear glasses when I know that there's no. No, I'm taking them. No. It's just be your eyes. It's not. I just forget. By the time I get back home, I'm well, promise I can't take breaks during the day because it's classes. So if I forget it at night, you're just stuck in for those days. I mean, it's pretty bad already. Don't make it worse.
Why does it take 5 Japanese words to say I never know?
I love that you actually knew the answer to that.
So maybe you could offer some.
Yeah, you turned her down. Going up to you straight up said no.
After the reading.
Brad was clearly having a week. Yeah, this really should not be that hard to read from here, should it? No, no, it shouldn't. This is why I use the grammar context. No, it's cool. By the time I have to actually like say something, I put it off anyway, so it's alright. Thank you. Get her old man. No. That's not something. I have bright eyes with my contacts in. You have bright eyes, contacts in half his age. Oh no. I don't like that. All right. behave. Yeah, don't bully me. She is the one on the stage. You're the audience member.
Oh, is he capable? Oh, I don't think so.
Is he bullying her?
Yeah.
He bullies me all the time.
Good.
No, he might be 1,000 feet tall, but doesn't mean I won't take him out of the knees.
Yeah, fire up, get to know yourself.
No,
Ouch.
You're me. Know that? Okay.
What is happening? You hooligans. You hooligans. Yes, I don't know where. Even on screen.
I was like, you guys can take this everywhere.
No. Remember, I should close the computer. You away.
You're portable.
we can't do that. We got the things.
No, it's fine. We can just close the computer. We can shut that down.
Alright, that works.
I'll like make fun of GoPro and all that.
Meanwhile, Molly and David are like, what are you guys making up with?
Yeah, it's gonna make it heavy. It will make your face look shrinking.
No, it hasn't did yesterday.
Why do you have so many on there?
Because I need this one, because I can't read that. And it's my son is with somebody else, and I don't know when they're getting home.
Yeah, it sounds like you and me in the same boat tonight. Mine's with a friend that they were.
Well, Emmett's in my office, but Jeffrey's in Winston with somebody.
That's so ominous with somebody.
Oh, is that-
I think that's emails.
Is that comments? It's like somebody's email came up.
That's my email.
It's your email.
I don't know why. Cool. Live chats app though, I think.
Nice.
Yeah, it's there.
We'll be starting in a couple minutes.
Everything in there.
Yeah, I clicked on it and it was like fixed up my email. So
It's like awkward if you make it awkward. Thanks, Maria.
That's what I do in awkward silences.
It's only awkward if you make it awkward. You make it awkward.
I shush the first.
Do not
I messed up there.
make it
I
awkward,
shush the
right?
first person who breaks this.
You were the first person to break the silence.
So that's why I messed up.
Disappointing.
Just like my father.
Oh, it's only funny if you see the show.
That's what disappointment can do to a child.
Got it. It's always.
ouch.
Parents just don't understand.
Maybe you should have won English.
Brad, you're
Sometimes I think it's out of spite. Why are you laughing? Because I remember my part.
Well done, Brad. Reference. We'll start with Brad.
I don't need it. I'm good.
Don't forget what's over.
On that note, welcome everyone. We would like to welcome everyone who's here in person and everyone who is streaming online to tonight's reading of Beyond the Grave by Brielle Jones. Thank you. This piece that we're going to read for you tonight is part of Brielle's honors thesis on xenophobia and theater, and she's been working on this for nearly a year now, developing this piece and researching it and developing these characters. If you've never been to a concert reading before, this is a concert reading, said because we are at music stands, different than a staged reading, which would be more involved in this. But this concert reading will be actors performing the words of the playwright, but we will also have a stage direction reader reading stage directions to help you imagine in your mind's eye what you would be seeing in this world, as we don't have scenery or costumes or lighting or things like that. We have to rely on your imagination to help these playwrights' words come to life. Another thing you should know is that we've rehearsed 3 days on this, and every character speaks multiple languages. And initially, when we began this process, all of the actors were cast in alignment with the ethnicity and race of the characters, but due to circumstances beyond our control, several of the roles are being played by actors who do not fit the demographic description of the characters. And that can be part of our discussion afterwards, because after we read the play, which will take about an hour and 10 minutes, take a short break, and we'll come back and have a brief discussion about it from two main perspectives. One perspective from a playwriting perspective. This is in development, so our playwright, Brielle Job, has some questions for the audience to help her understand better how an audience receives the play as it's being read and performed for them. But also, we would like to engage with the play and its content in terms of the initiatives that the college and our country is going through in terms of equity and diversity and racial justice and inclusion. This play deals with a lot of very timely and pertinent issues with identity, culture, ethnicity, race, religion, and all life and death. It pretty much sits on everything that's important to anyone who's alive. So no small feat for our play right there. But we'll engage in that conversation afterwards. But until then, we invite you to sit back and engage with us in your mind's eye as we read for you Beyond the Grave by Brielle Job.
Beyond the Grave by Brielle Job. Characters. Sophie, white, speaks only English, upper middle class American Christian, age 16. Hayato, Japanese, speaks Spanish and English, a failing businessman, atheist, age 27. Amruta, Indian, speaks Hindi and English, dressed in traditional wedding garb, including elaborate henna on her arms, age 23. Beatrice, Cuban, speaks Spanish and English, practices Santeria, carrying her entire life in a backpack. A tattoo of a Cuban flag is on her right wrist, age 22. Dalil, Iraqi Muslim, speaks Arabic and English, family-oriented young man, age 24. Nishuti, Hutu, Rwandian, Catholic, speaks French and English, an academic, age 26. Kuna, Polish, Ashkenazic Jew, speaks Polish, English, possibly Hebrew, very small, both physically and otherwise, age 18. Each character will be speaking their native language at some point during the show, as well as English. When speaking English, it is important that there be a distinctive and appropriate accent. Things to consider when accounting for accents: rhythm, speech, phrase, patterns found in the culture's music. Setting: an international airport in the United States. Time: 2016. Scene 1. Airport ambience as the lights come up. Rolling suitcases, announcements in different languages, the beeping and scanning of machinery, etc. There are 6 tableaus set up. We only see silhouettes. A man of almost 30 sits at a bar. A young woman is seemingly being fussed over by a character unseen. Another girl is nervously clutching papers with only a backpack. A young man travels with his family unseen. They are stuck in security. Another young man pores over a small book. The young girl is seated alone on a cell phone. Sophie enters, wearing headphones and carrying a backpack and pulling a rolling suitcase. Her music mixes with the sound of the airport and the other languages being spoken in tableaus.
そして5と表示されます。彼らはそのような笑顔を咲かます。 Watashi no chichi wa shobai no tame na ite. Watashi wa mana bubeke desu. Watashi wa kashite shimasen deshita. Watashi wa shise shimasen deshita. Watashi wa kashite shimasen deshita. Dekari watasei wa imakoko nimasu. Soro e ukare desu. Zetai ni dekanai koto ni namayasu reru. Ima watashi wa imasu meande itakoko no nai basho no subatsu shimasu. Watashi no senso wa totimo gakare shuru desho. Shikashi, kareri wa nani o suita imakusa. Karera wa shinde iru. Ite shimaraita. Kareri wa tade shinde iru. Sono yatari no tano mina tu oma jioni.
Ma, Claudia, my tinku. I said na he hai get hala ne wala hai. Yeah, ma, please. Adi kono ma kana. Waha pariti dar chuki has vaspas upo bata. Domo waha har pachok je. Ar mujedar na hai hogi. 1, 2, 3, pasaporte, identificación, 1, 2, 3, pasaporte, identificación, 1, 2, 3.
Startled by a loud announcement, she looks up, as if out of a large airport window, and sees the city for the first time. She stops in her tracks.
Bonito. Oh mamá. Está muy bonito. Es como el sueño de plata y platino. Se pone de potillas, toca las estrellas. Es como las bailarinas en La Habana. Saya kun ko saya aula manyarin. Audikirit ahit. Anyara jawi safri. Nadai ki jawi safri ya ome. Na aude lochale. Ya ome. Inahum ya ratsu. Asa ahit. Abune audi launa. Amina habi wansahi baki min fadlik. Ya umme, la ba'a sa'afhab lil tahahi min abi wa sabtahi. Una mau hanfe. Hawa mau amina.
C'est mon papa est vrai, n'est-ce pas? Pourquoi n'ai-je pas fait plus attention quand il couvrait les tombes? I have lost my boarding pass. I need it still. Hey, amico le professor American ne patu pati. L'anglais Mazapaka is still in Melios pour ça. Oh, excuse me, ma'am.
Tak, wyraźnie powiedziałem. Nie. Czekałem następnie samolot do Nowego Jorku. Tak, wiem, w Williamsburg mamy jazz. Tak, mam sukienkę. Nie, powiedziałam uśrednie bluzy. Więc nie, unawaj, matematyka dla droza. Proszę, mama. Tak, wiem. Cześć, papa. Wiesz, ja... Tak, papa. Przepraszam, papa. Tak to prawda, jestem po prostu denerwowany. Szkoda, że nie wyszedłeś. Po prostu wszystko jest takie nowe. Nie wiem, czym się podoba. Wyjątkiem szczęśliwe, wyjątkiem w domu. Tak, papa, tak, mama. Kocham pasję. Tak, zadzwonię do niego teraz. Do widzenia.
By this time, Sophie has made it across the stage to her gate. She removes her headphone and holds out her boarding passport to a woman over a counter we don't see. Then all of a sudden there is a loud hiss and a large explosion. What on earth was that? We hear a crack and suddenly the ceiling is falling in. Everyone on stage, including those in tableau, are shaken. They cry out in quick succession as the roof and walls begin caving in.
Watashi wa kimi neramasu.
Ma, please. Santa Maria, Madre de Dios, la Marina se está cayendo. Anna, dime la Abi.
Notre Père, qui es à ceux, que ton nom soit sanctifié, que ton règne vienne, que ta gloire soit faite, sous terre comme au ciel.
O drogi ponie, niech zgadnie business nią I podwegu wiosnę. Mi opisują jego boku.
Dear God, there's a flash of light. Scene 2. Amruta, Beatrice, Hayato, Dalil, Nishuti, Kuna, and Sophie are all downstage getting up after being crushed by the collapsed building. They all speak in English.
What the hell was that?
I have no idea.
How did we survive that?
Good luck, my friend.
Mom? Father?
The blast must have taken out the towers.
My phone isn't working either. Mother! Oh, you're all right. Mother? Are you all right? Look, my Hannah still looks fine. See, Mother?
Her mother remains unseen, but it's indicated by Amruta that her mother cannot see her. She tries unsuccessfully to get her attention. Something else catches Amruta's eyes, unseen by the audience. Dalil's mother looking for him.
Oh, ma'am, he's, sir, excuse me. Your mother? I think she's looking for her. Peace be upon him. Mother, it's all right. I'm right here. Mother, I promise it'll be all right. I'll find Amina and the children. I don't think they can hear us. What? I don't think they know we're here. What do you mean by that? Miss, what do you mean by that?
I think she means you're dead. I think we all might be.
What do you mean we're all dead?
I mean, I think this is the afterlife.
No, that's impossible.
You're telling me.
I don't know. Maybe the saints have brought us here.
Saints?
Perhaps they have brought us from the material world.
You mean to say that this is some kind of limbo, purgatory?
Can't be right. I can't be dead. I'm only 16.
That has no age requirement.
But I can't be here. I have to go home. My family, they need me. I have to go home.
If this really is the afterlife, I think that's going to be hard.
But you don't understand it. If I am here, how will I be buried? My family will have no grave on which to place stones.
My family will never know what happened to me. I will be adrift forever.
So, what does that make this heaven?
I don't think so, my friend.
This doesn't make any sense. Do you suppose we're stuck somewhere in between lifetimes? Perhaps the judgment day is come.
That can't be right.
You expected more dead relatives?
I don't know any of you people.
Maybe you're meant to. Maybe we are all meant to. Maybe this is all some kind of magical act of fate.
In the name of Allah, I humble myself to you. Oh, Father, I am ready for your judgment.
If this was meant to happen, what are we supposed to do? How do we hold up our end of the bargain?
Bargain? You can't bargain for the dead. If you could, the world would look very different.
God is asking something of us.
What?
I don't know.
Being in purgatory is supposed to mean you have unfinished business or something, right?
Yes, well, sort of. You can linger on earth with the spirits.
Dalil is still kneeling, praying. Kuna glances upwards. Nishuti crosses himself and holds a cross necklace close.
This is not how this was supposed to go.
But what I want to know is, how did we all die in the first place? All I remember is handing my passport to the lady and hearing an explosion.
I too heard this sound.
Loud, like a gun.
Like a bomb.
Yeah, like a bomb.
You don't really think someone did this on purpose, do you?
Why not? Happens all the time. I've been in plenty of places that have received bomb threats. School, baseball games, the mall.
Oh, but surely this wasn't an act of malice or violence in such a way.
I don't know. An international airport's not a bad target if you don't care about pedestrians. Or if you do.
What do you mean?
I mean, look around. You've got a collection of how many different citizens from how many different countries? If this was an attack, it was meant to be a loud one.
I mean, whoever did this didn't care about a strategic target. They wanted to hurt a lot of people.
A lot of different people.
Exactly. And what better place to do it than an international hub? People always coming, people always going.
Terrorist attack.
Well, were you terrified?
Do you think we're the only ones who died?
Are we the only ones who are stuck?
Amina.
Are you alright?
Amina, my sister. She had gone with my younger brother. The other two, they were with my mother.
But your mother is alive. We saw her.
Yes. Yes, you're right, but if this is the judgment day,
Perhaps they're all alive. They're okay.
I was supposed to be there for them. My parents, they don't speak much English, so I translate for them.
I'm sure your family will remember you. Always.
I pray they forgive me.
God will surely forgive you, my friend.
Okay, that's real nice, but I think we're ignoring what's important here. We're dead and have no idea who killed us.
There are worse fates.
What? No, I can't be dead, okay? I can't be.
This place, it doesn't feel like death.
I think I know what you mean.
Of course it doesn't feel like death. It's death. It's nothing.
This doesn't feel like nothing.
No, it doesn't.
Besides, death certainly can feel like nothing.
I agree.
But what can we do? Where can we go?
I'm going to find my parents.
Not by yourself.
Please let one of us go with you.
She's already dead. What could happen?
I don't think it will matter if you go find them.
What are you talking about?
My mother, she couldn't see me. She couldn't hear me. She couldn't feel me. His as well, right?
I'm afraid she's right. We are all dead and we are all in some kind of transcendence.
I don't think you should leave alone.
I think it's perfectly fine that she leaves alone. I did.
So did I, but that doesn't mean I wouldn't want to see my family again.
As did I. Please, miss, let one of us go with you.
I'm fine, okay?
Sophie begins to exit but stopped, almost as if there's something tugging her backwards. She struggles, but she can't seem to go that way. She tries leaving off the other side of the stage. She can't.
Change your mind?
No, I'm stuck. I can't go any further.
What do you mean?
It's almost like I'm being pulled back like a magnet.
Maybe his spirit has attached itself or something.
Beatrice looks around, as do some of the others. Nishuti's gaze lands on a large kiosk built in the structural pillar upstage. Then Nishuti tries to venture away to where Sophie still stands. He is pulled as well.
Look! I think if we have been bound to something, it's that over there.
I was over there charging my phone before the explosion.
So was I.
I went near that place looking for Amina.
I was sitting next to it, there. And you, I believe you were beside me.
I don't remember where I was.
Well, I was over there handing the flight attendant my passport.
Perhaps the explosion knocked you backwards.
I doubt it.
You'd be surprised what the force can do.
Oh, like you've been blown up before.
You may not have been here when the bomb first went off, but I do believe that it's possible you were thrown backwards towards the rest of us.
This is insane. I'm not supposed to be dead.
Everyone is meant to die.
I'm 16. I've never even driven a car.
She's so scared.
In any case, what are we supposed to do? Are our souls condemned to wait here forever? Why has the cycle stopped?
Perhaps that's why we are still here. Because we don't know. We don't even know what it is. We don't know.
How do you mean?
We need to figure out the truth about what happened.
I agree.
But where do we even start?
Well, why would someone want to kill so many people?
What kind of message were they trying to send?
Are you kidding me right now? This is ridiculous. You know that, right? If we're all dead, there's nothing we can do now. Isn't there supposed to be some angel, right? Like Gabriel blows his horn and some crap and we all go home to God?
I don't think this is heaven, if that's what you're implying.
I agree with. I'm sorry, I don't know your name.
Beatrice.
I agree with Beatrice. I believe we're in some level of purgatory.
What does that mean, though? Nothing. It means we're damned and there's nothing we can do about it.
Oh, it means we are not yet clean, not yet ready to be welcomed into the kingdom of God.
Perhaps we are still waiting for the judgment day.
I don't understand.
No one does. They just think because they're adults, they know everything.
Look, kid, none of you are adults. And I clearly don't know everything.
I think everyone is just scared.
I'm not scared. I'm just not an idiot. We're dead. That's it. That's all there is to it. We can't change what we did when we were alive, so we're stuck with the punishment now.
I don't believe that's true.
Oh, right, because you think this is what, some kind of pit stop to heaven? Give me a break.
No one knows what to do, please. Let's all just take a breath.
Man, you are all pathetic.
That's enough! All of you. You. What's your name, little girl?
Call me little girl.
What's your name?
Sophie.
Come with me a minute, Sophie. Come on, kid. Let me tell you something.
Touch me.
Fine. Sure.
What do you care anyway?
We're making a scene,
What are you
kid.
talking about?
Look, I know. You're the kind of kid who doesn't want anyone to tell them what to do, the kind of kid who wants to do things her way.
You don't know me.
Am I wrong?
Oh, I suppose you think I'm some stupid, spoiled American bride.
That's not what I said.
Am I wrong?
Look, kid, I'm trying to help you out here.
What were you even doing in America if you hate it so much?
Business.
What kind of business?
Adult stuff, okay, kid?
I'm 16.
How's that going for you?
What do you mean?
You do well in school?
I guess.
Your parents are real proud, I bet, huh?
I guess.
You guess.
I don't know. Never really asked, I guess.
Then they are,
How do you know that?
because you'd know if they weren't.
What does that mean?
You ask a lot of questions, you know that?
Geez, sorry.
Hey, wait. I wanted it to be the death of me.
What?
More questions, see?
No, what did you say?
English was the one thing I could never get right. My father told me I should learn for business, but I never did. I never did.
What are you talking about?
I never learned, not like you in Japanese, you little smartass.
A what?
Would?
I don't speak Japanese.
Oh, you're speaking it right now, genius.
No. You're speaking English.
What?
Now who's asking the question?
No, wait. You're not speaking Japanese?
No, weren't you listening?
This place really is strange.
What?
Guess death doesn't have a language barrier.
You think because
Only explanation. I never learned a word of English. Sometimes I think it was out of spite.
why?
Keep climbing. That was kind of my father's motto.
I don't get it.
Keep going, keep advancing, keep moving upward. Valid English, that's pretty hard to do in the world of business.
Oh.
Yeah,
Sorry.
it's not your fault. It was either that or Mandarin.
So, what did you mean? That you wanted Americans to be the death of you?
Once I realized that I was useless, I had to get out. Like a coward, I ran away. I'd rent some cheap hotel in a big city all alone, and that's where I'd do it.
Do what?
Into my life.
What?
I was planning to take my own life. I guess I got what I wanted, huh? I have nothing to offer the land of the living.
Isn't that like a super big deal?
Killing yourself? Yeah, I'd say so.
No, I mean, isn't that like some samurai thing?
No, kid. when samurai kill themselves, it's because they'd rather die by their own hand than that of their enemy. It's noble. It's honorable. Mine would have been a coward's death.
Why?
Because I'm a bloody coward.
There was still more to live.
You don't get it. My life had run out of meaning. The world didn't fail me. I failed the world.
Your life was a gift from God. Why would you throw that away?
A gift? Is it a gift to lie awake at night, waiting for your family to call? Is it a gift to look all around you and see righteous characters and phony legends and in stupid kids' cartoons that are way better for this world than you'll ever be? Is it a gift to live in a world that expects you to be better than perfect but offers you no help? There was a show on when I was a kid. One character, they'd always say, today is bad, then tomorrow will be better. And if tomorrow's bad, try a little harder. Well, I tried.
All life is sacred.
That's what they tell you at school these days.
No. But that is what they say at church.
Ah, love your neighbor and all that there?
Exactly.
That's one fairy tale I never believed in.
What do you mean?
More questions?
Yeah, more questions. I'm a teenager, not an idiot, okay? So, you wanted to kill yourself because what?
I
Disappointed?
brought dishonor to my family.
What does that even mean?
It means that there were expectations placed on me and that I didn't exceed them. I didn't even meet them.
So, you were expected to exceed expectations. Doesn't that kind of defeat the purpose of them being expectations?
I guess you're right.
I know what you mean. Sometimes family pressure is hard.
It sure is, kid. It sure is.
Scene 4. Shuji looks over a small photograph. Beatrice approaches. Does it crazy, huh?
Mhm.
This place, being dead, this whole situation,
Yeah,
not exactly what I expected death to be like, if I'm being honest.
if I've learned anything in my life, it's that death is never as you expect.
I know what you mean. That thing is out of control.
We all make choices. That's in our control.
That is your brother.
Yes,
He has a machete. My papa will one too during the harvest.
my brother was no farmer.
Oh. He looks like you. Or rather, I suppose you look like him. Strong and kind and friendly. Like you could always count on him to be there for you.
He is all of those things. He does whatever it takes to protect and provide for our family.
He is back at home.
No,
Oh, he is dead too?
no.
That's very brave. Protecting his family. I wish I were like that, but I ran away. My parents sent me to this country for a better life. Don't misunderstand. I love Cuba. It's beautiful there, but the country is very poor. I came here to work. Then I'll send the money back to Mama and Papa, and grandmother and grandfather.
So you're providing for your family.
I guess you're right.
That is why I came here as well. I'm going, I was supposed to be going to school. I wanted to be a teacher.
I think you'd be a great teacher.
Thank you. That's very kind to say.
Where are you from?
A small country in Africa, Rwanda.
I feel like I've heard of that place before.
It's beautiful there too. Banana trees, marshes.
Your brother, is he still there?
Yes,
What does he do?
said one.
I am not the saint.
Oh.
My brother was in prison.
What did he do before?
He's no farmer.
With a machete.
He protected us.
What do you mean by that?
He did what he had to do for his family. Are you afraid of me now? You forget we are both already dead.
The dead can still be afraid.
Yes, I suppose they can be.
With a machete?
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Why?
Your brother was, he was,
Thought you said you shouldn't be ashamed of your family. I see. Shouldn't be ashamed unless there's something to be ashamed of. It was hard for me at first to watch him wipe blood off his face, wondering if it was his. But he is paying his penance. I believe that God has the power to forgive him.
what about the people he killed?
I pray their souls find peace. I pray for them every day when I pray for him and my mother and my sisters,
Your family.
my family.
Can I pray with you?
Nishiti nods and Beatrice sits down beside of him. Nishiti produces a rosary and crosses himself. They both bow their heads in prayer. Scene 5. Doolittle is scrubbing his hands and face with dust from debris while seated on a hair rug. Kuna looks at her phone, scrolling through pictures of her family. Amruta looks after where Hayato and Sophie went with a melancholy look.
Which way do you suppose is east?
Hmm?
East. Back towards Mecca and home.
I'm not sure.
That poor child.
This place feels so heavy and light at the same time.
I know that I certainly feel heavy.
How do you think she lost her parents?
But
That little girl, Sophie. She got stuck in the blast with the rest of us, but her parents aren't here.
We're all separated from our loved ones.
But we saw our mothers, our families. Hers are nowhere in sight.
she could be traveling by herself.
No, she went to look for them.
It's bothering you about it.
Why would her parents let her out of their sight? And when she's so young? When I was that age, I was all but attached to my mother's side.
She's not that young.
Suppose things are different here.
I can't imagine being without my mother. Couldn't.
But sometimes it's time to leave home.
Like you did?
Yes. I have a family of my own. Mama and Papa are nearby, but I carry on their traditions in my own home now.
She's just so young.
I think that none of us are much older.
I know I'm older. My mother was so relieved that a match had finally been made.
I know what you mean. My sister wasn't even allowed introductions until I was married.
I've not found a wife yet. It intimidates me, to be honest. All I've ever known is my family. My parents, my brothers, my sister. I'm the oldest of 5, and I worry about my siblings when I leave home.
As do I.
I miss my younger sister sometimes, but I see her frequently. My husband and I live nearby. Lived nearby.
What are we going to do?
I'm going to pray about it. However, I don't know what time it is where we are.
I'm not so certain time exists here.
And I'm not so sure we're anywhere at all. I feel that perhaps we're in some state of transcendence.
In between.
Perhaps. Waiting.
But what for?
Judgment.
There must be something for us to do. Something is being asked of us. I just know it. I feel it.
We should all pray. These characters are incredibly devoted in their beliefs, and their sequence of prayers should reflect that. Each should be distinct in their expression, posture, actions, and words.
Do either of you have water?
Oh, of course. Here.
Thank you. Begins pouring it over his hands, feet, and face.
Do you have some food of any kind?
Sorry.
I do. Here. When you're a mother, you're always prepared.
Thank you.
Dalil continues washing himself and then kneels on his prayer rug, prostrating himself. Amruta finds a somewhat elevated area to sit cross-legged and place shrine-like items, including food, in front of and slightly above herself. She lights incense, oil, and/or a candle and clasps her hand in prayer. Kuna opens up a picture of her family on her phone again and holds it close to her chest. The scene should evolve into a rather intense moment of contemplation. A clear stage picture should emerge, playing on the different levels with Dalil on his knees, Amrita slightly elevated, and Kuna remaining standing. They all begin reciting prayers. Specific verses can be chosen either by the director or the actor. They should all overlap and evolve into an orchestra of prayer and slowly move that fits together like a piece of performance art. Their voices get louder and louder as the lights fade.
It's hard enough to be a teenager, and it's even harder to be a rebel when every rebel you've ever heard of was more important than you. Don't get me wrong, Fidel was magnificent, but he set a pretty high standard. That's what I love about Cuba, though. It really is a telenovela with a daring, charismatic young man who comes out of nowhere to take the establishment by storm. It's so dramatic and romantic and exhilarating and scary and beautiful all at the same time. My grandfather still remembers being a little boy too, small to run up his papa to help in the zafrat de los días melones. I definitely would have gone. But instead, I am here in the United States. There is work. I didn't want to go. Mama and Papa made me. But I'll always have this piece of Cuba with me. My family doesn't know. My friend did it in the back room of his house. Is he not a brilliant artist? It's so pretty. I look at it and think of him in my grandmother's papusas, and going dancing with the girls and saying prayers for Mama. That's what I love about Cuba.
I don't like traveling, especially away from my husband and my family. I feel like my people worked so hard for a home. It's disrespectful to leave the one I have. But Gad could not leave his work, and my mother was kind enough to take the baby. So they sent me to mourn with father's family. I was the only child old enough to remember that side. I like them well enough, but I don't know. They are family, and when Siorka passed, they needed all the help they could get. It was particularly with the young children. It's important to be there for your family. They are always there for you. Everyone who lives in our neighborhood, we are all Jewish. We have lots of large gatherings, especially for the holidays. My favorite is Sukkot. Everyone meets at the end of the street where we put up this big sukkah tent. There's so much food, and we all think about how grateful we are for the home we now have.
I love the airports. I understand that's usually kind of a joke in America, but I really do. I love leaning back and listening to sounds. It's like music. Women's shoes clicking on the ground, wheels rolling on suitcases, the stirring of coffees and drinks at the cafes and bars, the announcements coming over the speaker in countless different languages. It's like music. It reminds me of India in that way. It reminds me of home. People are always moving, talking, humming. It's like music. It makes you want to hum along with them. I live with my grandparents as well as my parents and sisters. Everyone is always together. That's what Hinduism teaches us. We are all one and connected. There is music in the house. Hindi sounds like music, I think. Soon, I was supposed to live with my husband. It's important that I make a good match for my family. I haven't met him in person, but we video call a lot. With my father's supervision, of course, or my grandfather's. But he's very kind, and he works in medicine, research mostly. Came to these States to study and to work.
My brother, he swung the machete during the hunting season. I remember my mother and sisters wringing the red from his shirts. Sometimes there was so much it stained the cloth almost pink. Color he would wear later. I don't remember much of that spoon. I remember one day everything was normal. Then the next it was all different. Azampaka's teacher left with the recipe embassy. Others tried to leave too. None made it very far. Azampaka was fast. He doesn't regret the things he did. Not really. He did it for us, for my mother and my sisters, and for me. I don't know if they'll forgive him, the ones who met his blade. He sought forgiveness from the Father, and he granted it. At least, I believe so. Things are never black and white. Things are never certain. Evil can poison you, but good is always the cure.
I remember watching these shows when I was a kid, reading my favorite manga while I waited for my parents to leave the office, and all the heroes, all of them, were the same. They all had this optimistic, go-getter attitude that I could never quite find for myself. I've always been more reserved, more contemplative, meditative almost. Look at me now. I still look like I just walked out of school in my button-up and tie. That's the cycle, I suppose. School to university, to work, to family, to work, to work, to work, to work, to work. I tried my best. I did what I was supposed to do, and now I have to go. I've given everything that's in me since the first day I walked myself to school, and it wasn't enough. They always told me to do my best, and I did, and it wasn't good enough. If today is bad, then tomorrow will be better. If tomorrow's bad, try a little harder. They didn't account for those of us who were already trying so hard.
I didn't want to come here. I didn't want to come to America. It's a lawless land. It's a lawless land for people like me in any case. But my mother wanted to come here to America. Her sister moved here a little over 10 years ago. Her family wasn't thrilled that she had left, and I think my mother felt especially guilty that she couldn't stop her. She couldn't stop her then, so she wanted to stop her now. She wanted to convince her to come home with us to Iraq. I should have just taken them home. I had never flown before we came over. I had never left Iraq. I didn't want to leave. Father was never going to let mother travel by herself. So we all went. We left the skyline and river and the mosque. People wonder why we go back. Why would we go back? Because it is home. I grew up dreaming of bombs and smoke and gas, some thrown by the US government, some by our own. But those people have received their justice. And now the law is in our hands. We are our own people now. We are not alone. We are a community, a people, a ummah.
Dear God, how did I get here? I mean, here's the pearly gates. Where's Gabriel? Where are you? I don't understand how I got here or why I'm here. I know I wasn't perfect, but isn't that what forgiveness is for? But I'm stuck here now and I don't know how to get out. Please just tell me what to do. And who are all of these people? I've never met them before. I've never even seen them before. So why am I stuck here with them? What do they have to do with me?
We begin to hear the other characters reciting their monologues, but in their native language. Translations can be found in the English.
Dear God, help me to understand what I did wrong. Where did I stray from your light? I followed your teachings and I planned to dedicate my life to your service in the church. I promise I will. I already teach Bible study and lead worship. I just don't understand how I ended up here now. I followed all of your rules and I did what I was supposed to do.
The voices of the other characters are getting louder.
Dear God, I can't figure this out without you. Please just send me a message or a sign, something to let me know you're listening. To let me know I haven't been lost, that you haven't forgotten about me here in this place with these people.
The voices stop.
These people. Just people.
Sophie sits center stage, staring into the abyss that is the audience. Maybe her eyes dart back and forth in some kind of mental calculation or processing. The other characters are all present. They're talking inaudibly amongst themselves or looking concerned at Sophie, who hasn't moved in quite a while. Playing space has shrunk, closing in.
Kid. Kid. You're looking a little like those news robots. Okay, you're giving me the creeps, kid. Hey, come on, where's that fire?
I don't know. I don't know anything anymore.
Teenagers. This is worse than I thought. Come on, you were just telling me like an hour ago. A day ago? A week? Huh. Time's a strange force. You were telling me life's a gift and all that.
But this is death, remember?
Fair enough, fair enough.
Your mood sure turned around since whenever that was.
Well, sure. Now that I'm dead, who cares, right?
Who cares?
Yeah, who cares?
You don't think it matters at all that all of us, for some reason, have landed ourselves here this length? 7 of us have just stumbled upon this, I don't know, this abyss?
Do you?
You are impossible.
Look, I'm just saying, whatever happens now, is anyone really in control of it?
We are.
You say so, kid.
We don't want to, I don't know, get out.
Are you suggesting we cheat death? Come on, kid. I've watched enough cartoons to know that's not happening.
No, like, yeah, I guess cheat death.
I don't believe that can be done.
Perhaps we find our guardian angels. They can help us.
Or what?
Yeah, your spiritual self, the part of you not found on earth.
Well, we are certainly not on Earth.
But we can't go anywhere.
Perhaps we do not have to. If we are, as you say, among our spiritual selves already, then perhaps this is some kind of purgatory.
And if that's the case, then what?
We cleanse ourselves somehow. We must repent before we can depart. My name is Nishuki.
Sophie,
It's nice to meet you, even under such circumstances.
I'm Beatrice.
Hi, Uncle. You three joining? It's guess it's sharing time.
My name is Amrita.
I'm Kuna.
Leo.
So, what's next?
How do we get out of here?
Do we get out of here?
We hear an industrial sound. A collapse! Whether indicated via set light or the space closes in.
What was that?
Seems we must go somewhere else after all.
But where?
I think you're right, my friend. This world is collapsing.
The airport is still collapsing, but does not mean anything for us. We can't even touch people who are still alive.
The kid has a point. Can we be crushed by falling debris if we've already been crushed by falling debris?
Another crash! The characters are physically shaken.
I felt that.
I think we might be in some trouble.
Here, I thought my biggest problem today was being dead.
Where are we supposed to go?
That depends on where we are.
Well, there are some options. There are 7 circles, 7 layers.
I also imagine there are multiple things.
Dante wrote about the 9 circles of hell. Is that what you mean?
Jeez, I really hope this isn't hell.
I'm not sure, but isn't hell supposed to be more?
Fire and brimstone-y?
Yes, more or less, I thought.
I don't know about your circles of hell, but I meant 7 layers of heaven.
That sounds much better to me.
Me too. If I remember correctly, Dante did not have a very pleasant time.
I don't think we're anywhere.
You know, that's what I thought it'd be like too.
No, I mean, the world is perpetually moving, always in cyclical motion.
Like Buddhist reincarnation.
Well, yes, it's very similar to Hinduism, but our teachings tell us that the world goes through cycles, like seasons, of one of destruction and one of construction.
A never-ending story.
The Ouroboros.
If this is the world being destroyed, are we being destroyed as well?
I don't know.
The world starts shaking around them and more pieces are falling.
It's starting to look like it. Watch out!
I'm with the kid on this one.
Sheila, please.
It is ending now.
Everybody get down!
Is this the cycle beginning?
Or ending.
Larger and larger pieces are falling, the world is shaking and crumbling and closing in on our characters. Another large crash, short blackout. Lights come up, and the player's face has significantly shrunk.
Is everyone all right?
I think so.
I'm okay. Are you alright? You just dove right for us. You could have been crushed.
I saw the fracturing of the foundation. Based on the positioning, it wasn't going to fall on us.
How could you possibly know that?
In an instant. Impressive.
I have seen my share of falling buildings.
Oh.
But we are okay now.
This place sure isn't.
They all look around, taking shot of the crumbling set. The shooting moves slowly towards the darkness, skirting the playing space.
Oh, be careful.
Look,
The shooting demonstrates like before that he can go no further than the light. He's pulled back like a magnet.
Oh no, not this again.
The world is closing in around us.
Yes, we are being affected by this place.
We're already dead, so he can't hurt us.
We don't know that.
Well, in any case, we're not gone yet.
But we are being pinned in. Walls that aren't walls are getting tighter. The light is getting dimmer too. Look up.
They do. Sure enough, the light has begun to fade. It's patchy and uneven as it casts across the stage.
we can't seem to leave the light.
Not that I, for one, really want to.
No, me neither.
But if the world is coming closer, how do we get out of its way? How did Dante or whoever do it?
I never finished it.
Went down. Through all 9 circles.
Yeah, I don't know about you guys, but 9 circles of hell doesn't sound fun to me.
What if this isn't hell?
If it's somewhere in between, I think we just have to wait.
Another grumble of the earth, or wherever they are.
Dalil, you think this is heaven?
I think it's possible.
Doesn't really seem like paradise to me.
Has anyone ever tried to get out of heaven?
It's not about getting out, but you can ascend.
How do you mean?
On each level, you are taken to another prophet until finally God.
So it It's like a caste system after death.
I'm not familiar.
Every time you die, after following your vocation, you walk around ever closer to Brahma. Or God, I suppose.
But you saying we do it all at once?
Say that again.
What?
And Ruta, what did you just say about moving?
You move up a ladder of sorts.
And Delil, you said ascend.
Yes, you are taken up from each layer.
And in Dante's version,
There's the Inferno, Purgatory, and Ascension before Paradiso.
I'm not following. I don't exactly see a way out of this. We've all been falling through the floor, and I'm not seeing any ladder.
We can't exactly go looking for one, remember? We're stuck as we are.
Oh, but that's it. There's only one place to go from here. Up.
They all begin looking around for a way to go up. The lights flicker as they progress. Chunks of light flash before going out completely. The light should close in tighter and tighter throughout the scene until converging into one strong beam center stage.
You better get going.
Dilil jumps up onto the set and extends his hand towards Sophie. She hesitates, then tentatively takes his hand. He helps her up some of the debris with Emberta following. Beatrice begins making her own way, parallel to Nishuti. Kuna makes a quick observation and begins climbing herself. Hayato remains on the ground.
what is the matter, my friend?
What? Oh, nothing.
You're not afraid, are you?
The world shakes.
Well, I wasn't.
You weren't afraid to die before!
Oh, very funny, kid. That's because I was more afraid to live.
Hayato begins slowly to make his way to the base of the debris. Another quake, lights flicker.
All right, I'm going.
Hayato makes it to the ledge, outcropping with Sophie and Delil.
And now,
Nishuti loses his footing with the last quake.
Everything good?
It seems I am not as sturdy as I thought.
Take a breath. Have faith in the magic of doing it.
I feel foolish.
Do not be ashamed.
Amerta has come up to join Delil and Sophie, and now Hayato, she looks out beyond them.
Incredible.
If you say so.
It's that way. East.
how do you know?
I feel it.
It feels so empty, yet so full.
Potential energy.
Is this seriously turning into a science lesson? In purgatory?
Relax, kid. Some learning will do you good. No, I feel it too. Kind of a not spiritual energy. It's like looking up at the sky and seeing the stars in the darkness and feeling like you're a part of something bigger.
Thought you didn't believe in all that.
I don't believe in God. Doesn't mean I don't believe in anything.
And just because we don't all believe the same thing, doesn't mean we aren't all on the right path.
We're all God's people. All one community.
At this point, Kuna has made her way to the top. The others are making their way still. Kuna sits in almost a childlike posture, perhaps dangling her feet off the edge.
Yet we're all different too. Different sides of the same coin.
That's a lot of different sides for one coin. I guess that's why the earth is round.
Now who's giving the science lessons?
Matt,
We see that Shuti and Beatrice have made their way up to Kuna and are looking down at the other four.
Well, speaking of Earth, let's go back.
Amrita begins climbing and then takes Sophie's hand, helping her up. Delil and Hayato follow, making sure she doesn't fall. Our characters have now made it to the peak of the debris. The light gets brighter and focuses in as one strong beam center. Sophie stands under the last column of light on stage, staring up at it. The other characters stand on the outskirts of it, watching her. Kuna enters the column of light to stand beside Sophie.
I know it's scary.
I'm not scared.
You don't know where you're going. You don't even know really where we are.
I'm not scared.
I was afraid when I left home.
Or
Of course. How old are you, Sophie?
16?
I just got married and I'm 18.
You're married?
I just had my first child, a baby girl.
Wow. That sounds scary.
It was, but there is nothing I love more than that little girl. Sometimes I'm scared for her.
It's just, there's so much I don't know, and there's so much that I don't know that I don't know. It feels like I'm looking at a whole new world.
Yeah, that's the fun part.
It is. I don't even speak English. I came all the way to America. I left home.
Do you miss it? Well, do you think you would have?
Maybe at first. But it's an adventure. To go out into the world and see new things.
I guess.
Meet new people. You try new things, you learn new things.
Let that be your guide.
New things?
Learning.
I thought I knew everything. Now let me tell you how that turned out.
Well, no one can possibly learn everything.
No, but you can try. Then next time, you'll know more.
Next time?
Next time.
A giant flash of light. We return to the airport just as we saw in the beginning tableau, but this time the stage is fully lit and we see the characters we recognize. Beato, sitting at the bar. Amruta on her mother and her mother struggle with bags. Beatrice looks frequently over her shoulder. Dalil speaks urgently between an unseen TSA agent and his mother. Shuti flips through his dictionary. Kuna fidgets with her clothes while she's talking on the phone. Sophie moves between the scenes, but she should be dressed inconspicuously to the point where the audience may not even recognize her right away. We hear the same song playing in her headphones from the beginning. But the focus in each section should be on the other characters. Everyone speaks in English, unless otherwise noted.
And then it says go. They all use English like that. My father said for business. I should learn. I never did. Never did. Never did. That's why I'm here now. It's of poetry. Haunted by the thing I could never do, and now I'll haunt the place I've never been. My ancestors would be so disappointed. But what do they know? They're dead. Dead and gone. They're just dead. Just like everyone else around here. All right. How much do I owe you? What? Paid for? Well, what do you know?
There's a subtle light transition that takes us to the next tableau.
Mother, please, I'm fine. It's not like it's going to smudge. Mother, please, don't call Auntie. It's so late over there. Just tell her that we'll be there on schedule and I will not be late.
Amruta struggles to grab everything and gets her jewelry caught in a bag.
Mother, please, can you help? I think I'm stuck.
Here, let me help.
Oh, yeah, what?
Your bracelet is beautiful. Your clothes, they're very pretty.
Another transition.
1, 2, 3. Passport. Identification card. 1, 2, 3. Passport. Identification card. 1, 2, 3.
Startled by a loud announcement, she looks up as if out of a large airport window and sees the city for the first time. She stops in her tracks.
Beautiful. It's beautiful, Mama. It's very beautiful.
Sophie sees Beatrice, noticing her as another young traveler admiring the city. She goes up to her and stands beside her.
Es como un sueño, ¿no?
¿Sueño?
Un sueño de plata y platino que no pones de botellas en chocolateras, como los bailarines en La Habana.
Sophie laughs and dances with Beatrice, who also begins to laugh. Another transition.
It'll be okay. I promise he just wants to see your passport. You have your passport, Mom. There's no need to be nervous. Mom, they're just asking questions. Hey, little one, get back here. Amina, please go grab him. Mom, it's fine. I'll go check on Dad. You stay here with these two. Amina's got him. It'll be fine. I'm sure they're almost done.
Sophie has since said adios to Beatrice and is walking through security easily, next to Delil.
Excuse me, is everything all right? Is she okay?
Yes, sorry. She's just nervous. In what for Talana.
Are you sure?
She's afraid we'll miss our flight. This has happened before.
Oh, what flight?
Our gate is right here.
I'll go tell them.
But miss, really, that's not.
I still have time before my flight. I'll tell them you're stuck in security.
Oh, thank you.
Sophie speaks at a desk to an unseen attendant, pointing back to Delil and his family. She waves back and smiles, transitions to the next tableau.
That can't be right, can it? Why didn't I pay more attention when they covered tenses? I have lost my boarding pass. I need it still? Wish an American teacher hadn't had to leave. Mazin Parker's English is so much better for it. Oh, excuse me, mademoiselle.
Yes?
My boarding pass. I need it still.
Are you arriving or leaving?
Arrivons.
Arriving. You just got here?
Oui.
Then no, you don't need your boarding pass anymore.
Merci.
Sophie nods and keeps walking. We transition to the next view would be tableau.
Yes, I just arrived. No, I'm waiting for the next plane to New York City. I know, Leonsburg, I have the address. Yes, I have the address. No, I told him he didn't have to. Oh, then don't use them not to make up for Drozar. Sorry, Mother. Yes, I know. Hello, Papa. No, I didn't need... Yes, Papa. I'm sorry, Papa. Yes, that's it. I'm just upset. I do wish he had come with.
Excuse me, are you alright?
One moment, Mama. Kavishko Wyborzaku?
Are you sure? It's a little scary, isn't it? It's really big, huh?
Kavishko just takie nowe.
It's just new. I have to go, but you'll be okay. We're about the same age, I think, and I like traveling a lot. You will too.
Mama? Sorry, it's just everything is so new. I'll be happy to be home, but yes, Papa. Yes, Mama, I love you. Yes, I will call him right now. Goodbye.
Sophie makes it again to her gate. She produces her passport and boarding pass. She puts in headphones, takes her documents back, and is about to get on the plane when she stops. She turns around and looks around the airport. She stops and listens. We hear the other characters return to speak in their native languages. It doesn't have to be anything specific. It can be the actor's favorite lines or their arbitrary phrases. What's important is that we make out all the distinct languages over top of the music still playing, another airplane ambience. Sophie takes a beat, then decides against the headphones, placing them back into her pocket. The lights fade on her as the music fades. The lights on the other characters begin to fade and start to begin with noise. As the lights go out, we are left in the dark listening only to their voices, and then those too fade. End of play.
Thank you. We will take about a 5-minute break to stretch, go potty, get some water, whatever you need to. And then we hope you'll return with us for the talk back. Thank you. Take 5.
I'm like, I'm gonna love now too. But then we're so far.
Okay, well, they have the most exaggerated answers. And I looked at Alex and said, "Please talk." That's what I hear.
Because we had 8 people again.
Your kid get back?
Yeah.
Riel, my mom liked it. She said, good job.
Yeah, a lot of people think it's so. The only reason that I can think that they wouldn't do it is because he's not considered knowledgeable. But I doubt, I feel like Jonathan, he was a finalist for Captain America. Yeah, he was one of
Audio and lighting were much better this time.
The audio wasn't very different.
Oh, yeah.
They just said it was much better. We'll take it.
Over time, we did something.
Maybe your projection was just up there. Perhaps.
It's easier to hear if you can see faces too. It's a psychophysical. Let's give one more round of applause to our playwright, Brielle Jones. Thank you so much. So this discussion, we will probably go for a half hour or so. Depends on, again, how we all participate in that. But the purpose of this discussion is twofold. Partly, it is to help Brielle continue to develop her play. She's been working on it, but this is still a new piece. This is the first time it's been heard in actors' bodies. And so we have some questions for the audience about how did this play affect you, or what were some of the moments in the play that will help the playwright continue to work on her piece. But we would also like to engage in the discussion of some of the ideas that were brought up by this piece. There's a lot going on here from race, religion, ethnicity, and culture, community and family, afterlife and life. And there's a lot going on here that is really important in the world today, that we learn how to facilitate dialogue about some of these issues of equity and diversity and justice and inclusion. And our campus is making a concerted effort to focus on those things with our EDJI initiative. electives, and this is one of the events in that calendar. But we'll begin with Brielle asking a question of you to just something she wants to find out from you. Brielle will get to talk some, but this is not the opportunity. This is not the place for her to explain to you all of her choices and all of these things. This is a place to let the work speak for itself, and we want to know how you responded to it. So, Brielle, take it away.
Yeah, so one of the things that I really went back and forth on a lot in this piece is what was the amount that I needed to teach the audience for them to understand, some of these more obscure references, or like I watch it and I see all of these detailed pieces. I'm like, oh, and that's woven in there, and this is woven in there, but it was hard to include those in a way that for someone who hasn't spent almost a year doing all of this research, to register those details in one shot. You sit down and you watch it. And so I guess it's, how much did you feel that you missed without having some of that cultural or historical context?
So I guess, so can we clarify that question as, were there any moments, or what were the moments where you felt like you needed to know more to understand what was going on? Or to understand a relationship or anything? Any moments where you felt confused or lost?
And this might just be because, I've had a couple of days to sit with it, but personally, I don't think there were any moments where I felt lost. I mean, we don't know what's going on at the beginning from an audience perspective, but we're not meant to because we're not fluent in all these different languages. So, but that aside, I don't think culturally there was anything that I just completely didn't understand.
Yes,
I don't feel like there's any specific moments where I got lost or I didn't understand. But I saw this yesterday, so technically I'm not fresh off the press here. But I started thinking about these characters, and I noticed this time that each of these characters kind of has either an identifying moment or an identifying event that they are handling while also being here. And I feel like I actually didn't get that from Dalil. And I just realized that wasn't there. So that was something that I don't know if it's because I don't know very much about Muslim culture, or because like even Jameson's character has a historic event going on in his background, and so it makes me wonder what more I could learn from that aspect.
Thank you. Also, if anyone who's watching online, we have our stage manager is monitoring the comments, and so we can, if you have any questions or comments from there too, we'll take those as they come as well.
Yeah, I mean, I would have to say I never felt like I didn't understand something about the context of each of the people. That was very good.
I'd like to ask a question that's kind of follow up from something we asked last night too. This play, Brielle intentionally wrote this in a kind of Eastern style of storytelling that is not in that Western, the Western Freitag's pyramid of an exposition, inciting incident, climax, and resolution in there. This takes a different approach to that that deals with conflict and action differently than traditional dramatic structure do. How do you respond to the level of conflict and or action in this play?
I mean, I'll be perfectly honest. I felt while that was clear to me, I got that. I felt as if there were moments, and while I loved each of the little monologues that they have that come out, I don't know if it was a lack of stage direction or a lack because we're doing a reading, and so in the stage direction I wasn't clear. I felt like I needed
needed some direction to precipitate that for me, like to make these people come out to the center. I needed some framework for that, or I needed some sort of precipitating, not action, but visual stimulus or stage stimulus or something that makes those individual stories come to the fore. Even if it's just that they're all really bored and then they get bored, so they tell the stories that they need to tell. That was the only thing that, and again, I realize it's a different storytelling tradition. I felt as if those monologues sort of came out of nowhere for me, structurally.
I was just going to agree with that. I felt that there was a certain, it wasn't very bothersome, but I did feel like there was a bit of disconnect between the monologue section and the rest of the play.
I can agree with that. I mean, going to like some first one, there's always my brain goes, monologue time. Because like there's such a like, I think it's almost like a change in tone, like it's just this strict, complete shift in the rest of the play. I think that definitely needs to be more of like a gradual shift, so that we're not just like taken out so quickly out of something that's so different. That also could be just the way that that kind of storytelling is done. I don't know.
Backpacking off of those comments, I wish that the monologues and the information that we find out about these individuals, and even some of the history, was more, which I know is hard, was more integrated in the initial beginning. And that might even be like my American expectation of what story and plotline looks like. But that's something that I was kind of looking for, and I think that's part of what made it very rough this week.
Yeah, I think those monologues kind of ended up being contextual information dumps of how do I deliver this information that I thought people maybe needed in a way that would be more straightforward than picking it out of scenes.
They do, follow up, they do, for me, definitely flesh out these characters and deepen these characters a great deal. I think what I'm hearing coming out is like structurally, it's like, well, why are we suddenly having all these fourth wall breaks for that when that hasn't been part of the play before yet?
You actually touched on exactly what I was about to say. I feel like even though you meant them, or you intended them to be more informative dumps of where they are, what their backstories are, and where they're currently at, I think I learned the most about these people in those moments. And that's the inspiration that I wish I saw more in the beginning, not so much the actual information of their history. There's so much of who they are in those monologues, and I wish I saw more of that in the whole piece.
Yes. We've got an online something. Stand up so they can see.
Donna Owens asked, what was the most beneficial way you found to research for your production and thesis?
All right, we're going to transition. Are we ready to transition?
Yeah.
Okay.
So one of the biggest things that I did in my research was kind of, so you kind of have this deep culture, which is like people's values or their ideals or how they see the world, and then you have surface culture, which is all of how they behave, what they look like, how they sound, how they dress, and these kinds of things. And so what I ended up doing is kind of reverse engineering what the deep culture was based on surface culture. So I watched so many movies, TV shows, videos, listened to music from all of these different countries and these different cultures to try and grasp what it is their art was saying instead of just being like the history of Iraq. One of the easiest examples is I watched Foreign Sesame Street, which was what a goofy time. But watching Sesame Street that was made in and for Indian audiences, they were teaching little kids different messages than we see in American Sesame Street. And so based on the lessons that they would choose, that told me about that society and that culture of what they thought people needed to learn.
So what that stands out to you, like one like from Indian culture, you mentioned this yesterday, like that was like really different from Western culture.
For the Indian?
Yeah.
Actually, yeah. So I watched a Bollywood movie called Three Idiots, it was fantastic.
Bollywood is amazing cinema if you've never watched
It's so good.
It's so good. It's stylized, so it's very different.
it. Physics, they don't care about physics at all. And it's glorious.
But it was really interesting. So it starts out kind of like stereotypical of what we think of as like East Asian. There are three guys who go to this prestigious engineering school, and they're going to be engineers because their family told them that they had to do that, and they have to be able to make money and all this kind of stuff. And one of them in this trio of guys kind of becomes the troublemaker and is like, you're teaching us, you're giving us information, you're not really teaching us how to learn, and that's what I really want to do. And so they actually had a critical take on what we think of as stereotypically East Asian, of this, oh, you have to go to university and you have to do your work, and that's your purpose is to get your degree and make your money and do all this. And so it was actually critical of that view. In fact, one of the characters, spoiler alert, actually kills themselves because of the academic pressure. And so it was really jarring, number one, to see that in a Bollywood movie because it kind of is harshly juxtaposed to the style of it. But it was really jarring because I was like, oh, this was not at all where I thought this was going. And so that was really interesting to see that it began of like, yes, of course, stereotypically they go to the engineering school, but then to see that critique is something that we don't really understand being in the West. And so I thought that was an interesting thing that I didn't necessarily pick that up from reading about education systems in India.
So this play brings together a lot of different cultures and ethnicities and voices and language, and it does so, I think, beautifully, but also peacefully. We talked about conflict before. There's not a great deal of conflict between the characters, and they seem to the differences that have been the differences that have caused millions of deaths over the centuries were over. I don't know if they were, what's the word is, but they were not on display here. And these people who were like, we're just people. We have the line. Sophie has the line. They're people, just people in there. So how does this feel? How does it feel watching this in a world where violence is the norm? How does that juxtaposition resonate with you?
I feel like one of the things I really appreciated was that violence, the violence that we feel in the world, was really captured in the scenic demands that you put on the piece. And so this nonviolence within that sort of exterior violence was, I think, a really interesting. I think there's more there. Obviously, there will be more there, right? When you have a designer and you're dealing with all of that. But I think that juxtaposition was very interesting.
I think like looking at it from an American perspective, like I'm so used to violence. Like it's bad to say, but it's true. Like I've been desensitized to it because I see it all the time, constantly. Like when you have to, like my high school had bomb threats. Like I think at least twice a year, and like
I went to the same high school and we didn't have we didn't have bomb drills.
And there was like
tornadoes.
We had a almost terrorist attack in high school. I don't know if y'all heard about that, but there was almost a terrorist attack in my sophomore year. There was like a whole bunch of stuff. And so like that kind of stuff is just like, oh well, another thing that's happening. Like, it's really gotta say, but like, I also used to live in the ghetto, like murder and violence happen all the time. And so I think looking at it that way is looking at the way all the different cultures look at America and with their own violence, and then it's kind of like looking at America and being like, y'all suck. Like it's really interesting to look at it from like their perspectives as characters.
David has a comment.
Pulliam?
Yep.
Back again.
I enjoyed the different feel you achieved by using structure and rhythm to advance the action rather than conflict. Donna is forming a question.
She's forming a question.
Thanks, Dave. I love it.
I had a follow-up comment. Will you repeat your main point there, Nelia?
My main point?
Yeah.
That as Americans that we are desensitized to violence. And like just having all these different cultures looking at us with their own violence in their own countries.
Yeah, interesting. That's what it was. It was the cultures and the representatives. So in one sense, we have 7 different cultures representative, but they're not representatives of their cultures. They are individuals who happen to live within that culture and found their own way to survive. Some of them have internalized their culture more than others. Some of them are escaping their culture. They've all internalized in some way, but it's not the same as saying these people are stand-ins for the culture of Santeria, the culture of all of Hindu India. And so for me, this is almost as much, it's more about the individuals and how the individuals can come together. Because we talk about these culture clashes and culture wars, but when it's one-on-one, that culture then becomes context rather than ammunition or whatever. I don't know.
So the live stream is not to where we are at the moment. So Donna has a question that's back from your comment about Sesame Street, foreign Sesame Street.
Okay.
What examples of one of the messages from foreign Sesame Street teaches its youth?
Okay, so the one that I remember is the one that was made in India, and they had a really big focus. Like one of the episodes was all on nutrition and like eating breakfast, and I thought that was interesting because like we have that in the United States, but it's usually like don't be a bully is like what we teach little kids here, and so I thought it was interesting that it was more about sustaining yourself instead of, it wasn't about reacting or interacting with other people. It was about what you can do to be your best self, which I thought was an interesting contrast. It's on Amazon. It's very amusing to watch Foreign Sesame Street. It's adorable.
That's so smart too, Bria. What a really, like to go to Sesame Street because, those are the formative years and that is an educational program. And so the messages of a culture to their children seems like a really smart research move on your part. So that's so cool.
I wanted to hop back real quick to the structural elements we were talking about with the monologue section in there. And I'm just going to pose some ideas and questions and thoughts for you in there because some people have talked about how those monologues, how they're very valuable and helpful for character development, but structurally they didn't seem as connected to the rest of it. And talking with you, I also know that at the end of the Breakfast Club was a bit of your inspiration for this. If you haven't seen the Breakfast Club, kids are a bunch of different kids forced together into a situation that they're not allowed to escape from, and then in the end they get to know each other and they share their hearts to each other. But you chose to have them share their hearts with the audience instead of with each other. So it's almost through the choices you make, you're connecting the characters to the audience instead of to each other. So we're not. Whereas had it been a Breakfast Club type moment where something structurally triggered them to share these stories with each other, that would be a very different audience experience. Are we being individually taken into this, or are we overseeing? Are we eavesdropping on this group of I think mostly kids? They're all 20s or younger, young people who are dealing with this life or death situation that they don't fully understand. So that's just an observation, and I don't know if that's your intent or if you want to do something else with those moments in terms of connecting to the audience or connecting to each other. So,
Well,
that you don't have to answer. If you can chit chat if you want.
Can I also say that the scenes, the small scenes that you have, I also loved those. But I had the same sort of feeling about them. Not all of them. There were some where I clearly understood why a character approached another character and why the scene began. And then there were others that felt a little bit more forced. So for example, the scene between you and Jameson, that I sort of, there was a moment before in which you connected to him for some reason that made that scene feel quite natural to me. Whereas that, hey, come down and have a talk with me, young girl, because, let's just talk about you seem upset. That seemed a little less, it seemed a little more forced. But what happens in those scenes, they were really interesting scenes, and I think I'm connecting it probably to the opening of their souls to each other a little bit, or we get that little bit of them trying to understand each other and trying to figure out what's going on, trying to understand each other so that they can figure out why they're here or what's going on. So I kind of felt the same structural rift a little bit there with some of those that I did with the monologues, and even though they're always culture.
So transitions.
Yeah, there's this feeling that the scenes and the monologues and these standalone pieces that work and function so effectively, that they could be tied together a little more something. Not that they weren't tied together, but that's just one area where we craved more. And of course, we're not telling her how to write her play. This is her play. We're just telling her how we, this specific audience in this specific space, responded to this specific reading.
And there's a similar moment at the end when she gets, I'm sorry, the names are not. When she gets to the top and she's in that light, and then other people start coming to her, what precipitates them to come to her in that moment was unclear to me. It's the same kind of transitional thing.
Sure.
Even though I like what happens between all of them. Yeah.
Part of that may also come in with staging, I think.
Oh, staging.
It seems like that.
Yeah. But she took my advice. I said, let your designer figure it out. Yes, we got some more online chatter.
From Donna Owens. Would you say that the theater culture as a whole has internally glamorized violence since other art forms have done so?
That's a really good question.
Her question has theater glamorized violence. I'd say this one hasn't,
No.
but I think she's asking more in general. Is this play an antidote to our violent culture?
Because I just think about it, like, and you see like plays where there's like war for war's sake, or like, there's a gun, oh no, and you're just like, really, again, like, and sometimes you feel like when you watch from like play to play where there's violence, you're like, oh no, there's another thing, violence, and then sometimes it's not necessary. And I definitely feel like there's definitely that glamorization. That's not just like a Western thing, but I think in general there tends to be this glamorization of violence because people innately just are interested by violence. Like, how could a human being do that to another human being? And so I think sometimes the problem is that like, well, theater's another crack we can place this through. And there's some that do it greatly, like Les Mis, like wonderful musical, or a wonderful play. And so I think that's just that, I think this is definitely an anecdote for that because we aren't glamorizing violence. We are giving you an understanding of why violence can happen and why we need to solve this issue.
I would disagree that Les Mis glamorizes violence.
No, I said it doesn't.
Oh, it doesn't.
I said it doesn't.
Sorry,
I said it's a good example of how it doesn't.
I misheard you.
glamorize
Sorry, yeah. But I might snuggle up to that comment and suggest that, what, would you rather me piggyback the comment?
Honestly, yes, definitely up. It's just really uncomfortable.
All right, and suggest that perhaps film is more of the glamorization of violence, which it clearly is in action movies, and that perhaps stage where the real quote unquote realism of violence can't be achieved on stage as effectively as it can be on film. That instead, perhaps the stage glamorizes trauma more than violence itself.
I would say that the stage more goes for the psychological violence
Yeah.
of I'm watching a person. Jordan's like, yeah,
That's emotional violence.
yeah, watching somebody
Sure. Emotional
in-
violence more than physical violence.
in
Yeah.
real life.
Thank you for clarifying.
And for that reason of, oh, well, if you see a gun on stage, you're like, that's not a real gun, it's a prop, because you can't actually do that. And so it's almost desensitizing to physical violence because we're like, that's not real because it's on stage and they wouldn't actually do that. But I feel like it more glamorizes psychological violence, and one that comes to mind is like The Pillow Man. Which
Well,
is
that has some physical violence too.
Well, yeah.
Yes, you got another comment.
Two.
Those comments.
From Alexander, which character was the hardest to create and why? And from Jason Job, could the monologues be tied together as a life regret, something not done because of the unexpected timelines of their death? Timeliness. The first question is Alexander, but it's just Alexander official, so I'm not sure.
And which was the hardest to write?
Yes.
Ooh. I'm not sure any one was harder than the other, because like when I watch this piece, particularly when I watch the monologue section, I see where I placed pieces of myself in all of these characters. And so I think there's something about every character that I'm like, that's me. But that's like the small nugget in the character, and the rest of it is something usually fairly far removed from myself. But I'm not sure there's one.
Which one has the hardest time finding research for?
The hardest time finding research for was probably.
But we haven't talked a little bit about the Jewish Orthodox Polish parts were a little bit just because.
Yeah, probably the hardest to research was either Kuna or Dalil. Just to try and find media and things like that painted those demographics in a more attractive light.
Oh, Western world.
Right, and so it's very hard because even I know I mentioned Unorthodox, which is a brilliant production. The production quality is fantastic. But it's about her leaving her Jewish community. And so I'm like, okay, this is giving me a lot of cultural context, but it's also how she wants to get out. And I wanted all of these characters to be really steeped in that culture. Because if this was a play where all of them were like, man, the U.S. is so much better than where I live, that would totally defeat the purpose of us sympathizing with people who aren't like us.
It also just made it a Westerner being like, our culture's better than theirs.
Right, then it becomes ethnocentrism, and that's a whole other mess. But yeah, I would say probably Dalil and Kuna had the least amount of things that were accessible, or that I had to do the most, particularly with Dalil, the most combing through to be like, okay, who wrote this article about Iraq? And what that said about what was being said in each of those pieces. But I'm not sure there was one that really stood out as, man, what do I do with this?
You did choose these books.
Yeah, so part of them was part of them. There were a couple that I chose because I knew I wanted a character from every continent, which I get with the exception of Antarctica and Australia, so I subbed in the subcontinent of India and the Middle East. but I picked countries that I at least had some background knowledge on. Like I was familiar with some of the political history of Iraq. I was really quite familiar with the history of India. I was already familiar with the culture of Japan. I was pretty well acquainted with the political history and cultural context of Rwanda. I've been to Cuba. I've been to Poland. And of course, the American character is where I live. But that definitely was a factor of which of these countries do I pick? And so that's okay.
The second one, I think it's more, well, yeah. Okay,
It's
could
just
the
my
monologues
dad's
be,
trying to give me ideas.
could the
Thanks, Dad.
monologues be
Thanks, Dad.
tied together as a life regret, something not done because of the unexpected timeliness of their death?
And I mean, the monologues do kind of explore or explain why they're there a little bit more in depth. So it is in a similar vein to that kind of context.
Something that hasn't been brought up either night, the cast talked a little bit about it. How do you respond to the fact that there is no explanation of where we actually were or what the explosion was, and the explosion just didn't happen the second time around? Does anybody care?
As somebody saw yesterday, this question actually kept me up like all night. Only for a couple of reasons. So the first, I clearly am ready for this. The first was that they talk about how they can see their parents, and so then I imagine if they can still perceive the world around them, then they can watch the chaos of an airport trying to figure out what's going on. So then I imagine that that's happening the entire time, like through the whole piece. But they don't really react to anything else. They talk about how they can't find their parents, and so that illusion kind of loses itself. But then there are moments where Jaleel says, "I need water," and
There's water.
majestically, there's water, or there's food. And so then my question becomes, what items do they have? And then how could that facilitate them having more moments with each other, or less, because of those items? Like, and what importance do those items have, and why are they still here
Eventually,
with the rest of them?
Can dead people eat?
well, she doesn't eat it. She
Right.
sacrifices.
Well, and even Jameson's character, I think he still has his book. And so then part of me thinks, is there a spiritual component to the items that are able to enter this realm? And then what is everyone's item? Like, there's lots of questions. It's not like an easy one answer type scenario. And then you talk about how the stage is getting smaller and smaller, and of course, me, I start looking at the set design and everything else. There are lots of questions. I love what you've done. I would love answers, but also don't feel the need to give them. Anyway.
I have to say that's one of my favorite things is the shrinking of the space. That just I don't know that just it made sense to me. It captured my attention. It made me engage with the moment. Just those stage directions. So if Dave is listening, yeah, I love that effect so much. Yeah.
I sort of imagine, I don't know what Larissa was saying, about like wondering, like, they go from like not being able to touch people and being able to see this chaos to like not really mentioning it. Is I imagine that like the space, like just everything got darker and darker. Yeah, like I just imagine like they slowly were like on their own plane where it just became this dark space where they're kind of lost, which is probably why they're like figuring things out, which is why like the bright lights that happen, flickering, and like all of that is so like big points of direction, is because like the world around them slowly stopped being there until like when Jameson talks about like the charging post at the beginning, like it's all these moments, and specifically with the space, it's directly on them. Because I imagine having all this chaos around them during the entire play would make it very distracting.
Sure.
While trying to also like have this attainable, like all of them on stage talking to each other.
Yes, in the back again.
And the second part of your question was about the bomb and how we don't really cover that, what it was. And I don't think that, I never felt like there was a reason to explain it. But the moment where DeLille says, like a bomb, obviously it's a very telling moment. And I'm very unsettled that was never taken care of. Whether it be that DeLille recognizes that it's a bomb because of A, B, and C, or because people acknowledge their prejudice of DeLille because of his heritage, like whatever it is, it was one of those moments I was like, and then we kind of, it never came back, and I thought it would.
Yeah, you had it written in for all the characters to take notice of the Iraqi character when a bomb is mentioned. But then that's just have that moment and let that and say, deal with that, audience.
So I'll put this right here.
What are you going to walk away from this play with? What's your takeaway?
Being a cute woman, I just like realized like there's like I am very steeped in the culture in some ways better than I am in others, just because the way I was raised. Because like my great grandmother, she was born in Havana, Cuba, and like so she taught her children to speak Spanish, especially my grandfather who speaks Castilian. If you don't know what Castilian is, essentially it's poor people Spanish. And so it's exactly what it is. If you speak Castilian, like they're like, you're poor. So like, but he didn't teach his kids to speak Spanish, therefore I wasn't raised with it. And so there's parts of that where I was like, man, I really need to work on my Spanish. But like, you know, like getting ready for this character, I listened to a lot of Spanish music, and I was like, man, I really don't listen to enough Cuban music. Like I don't do enough Cuban dancing. Like I just like having that kind of cultural part of me that I'm so disconnected from. When like the food and some of the Spanish I'm with, like that's it. I'm like, ooh, I am big as I can do. Because like Santeria, though like my family never practiced it since my grandmother was Catholic, you know, I had research to do last semester for my Latin class, and so like I was familiar, but I'm like, oh, there's so many cultural things with Cuba that I didn't work on. And like as a historian, it just made my brain tingle. So I think that's the biggest thing I'm gonna take away from this is like, as someone who is Cuban, it's just like soaking myself a little more like into my own culture. Thanks, buddy.
I walk away with a sense of hope and gratitude. And the reason I say hope and gratitude is because hope that there will be a time when these cultural divides will be able to be explored and shared without hostility, because that's important. Gratitude for the fact that I'm grateful for the fact that I have the ability to grow up in a country and in a family that encourages me to explore different cultures and to recognize other cultures and be great and like see their value, even if their belief systems aren't the same as mine. Now, because of my personal beliefs, I'm not going to like stray from those beliefs because those are what sustain me personally. But I can still recognize the value that these other beliefs have given to other peoples all across the world who have different experiences, situations, cultural beliefs, familial values than I do.
Yes.
Question for you. Has this, and if it has, how has it challenged your personal beliefs throughout your research process, or has this just been a educational experience?
Student study. It definitely was educational in the amount of research that I did. It was also nice that it coincided with some of the classes I was taking here. like Near Eastern religions last semester and Far Eastern religions this semester. The first one in this semester was Hinduism. I was like, perfect timing. Makes sense. Challenging my my beliefs. So it was interesting, and Maddie, you kind of mentioned the religious aspect last night because I am not religious, and so to have to go down all of these characters who all except one was very, I think, beneficial to myself in a lot of ways. Because I was able to, instead of seeing religion as the mythos, I began looking at it from a more analytical perspective of I was seeing them more as philosophies and that value, again, that deep culture that was underneath the myth or the I don't want to say superficial, like the more topical beliefs and story and that kind of stuff in religion. And I used to be like, yes, this is what the religion is, but that's really not an accurate way to look at it. And so doing all of the research on the different religions was fascinating for one. But in that way, I was like, okay, I'm with you now. Like this makes a little bit more sense to my brain by looking at it instead of at the mythos, at the values that lie underneath it.
I felt like the centrality of family was thematically so important to all of the characters, with the exception of the American character, who I felt was most disconnected from family, either intentionally or whatever. And I just that seemed very telling to me or important to me in some way. I'm not sure what yet. And the fact that the connection to family is fraught. It's not just great. It's not just awful. It's fraught. It's lots of things. And that for each character, even just in the little end moment when he's trying to explain to his mother that it's going to be fine, just get on the damn plane. And the fraughtness of that, I love you and I understand that you're scared, but you just move. But I found it really interesting that our young American character, I felt like I knew much less about her connection to her family and what family meant to her, and
To go off both Will's part and Beth's comment, did it ever make you question your own beliefs, like during this? Because I know you're not religious, but you ask me questions all the time about with my Wicca and stuff, and you got questions. I have a list from I want to know. So did this experience of learning about this ever question your own beliefs and the things that you believe spiritually?
No. Again, it kind of, I find religion fascinating in any case. It didn't make me change my mind about myself, but I think it made me change my mind about other people in that way. And also learning more about the similarities across religions, and again, thinking of this more as philosophies instead of what we kind of think of as religion.
Yeah.
To see it more as a set of values instead of a set of beliefs.
And then my other thing was with Surfy. It was never a blank for me that she just wasn't family connected, because if you look in comparison to other continents, family is very different, because in America, there is this idea of you're 18, bye. You can leave now. And then sometimes you just don't talk to your parents for 5 years. That's kind of unfortunately a thing that happens. But other countries, there's no room for that. You sometimes, a lot of the time, will live with your family, or they move in with you, especially your parents or your grandparents, especially in Asian and Middle Eastern cultures. And so for me, Sophie, it was kind of like she has this disconnect because she's American, and it's like, you're 16, like, you do you, boo boo. Like, you're fine. Because it's kind of like the conversation in there too. They're like, she's so young, but she's not that young. Like, you know, and they're having that conversation. So I never really questioned that. I was just like, it definitely gives you just like this difference of Western culture, the way America deals with family, versus like, especially like Asian and Middle Eastern like cultures.
Yeah, that American individualism.
Yeah.
Well, I hope you will all continue to think about what you want to think, what you take away from this play, and where you think how it impacts your life or how it resonates with your experiences, with yourself, with your culture, with others, and with their cultures. One of the things I'm going to take away, which related to a question I asked earlier, was that it's not for me, it's less about a culture of other people than it is other people and their culture. And that if we can meet individuals for who they are instead of for where they come from and what we think that means, then maybe there's more hope and more gratitude, as Kylie would put out there. So think about that. We thank you for joining us. Let's give one more round of applause.
Alexander was for my mother. It's because at least he belongs to my little brother.
Okay, so thank you, Nelia's mom, for Alexander. Go Spartans. Thank you. Have a great night. Drive safely. Stay warm.
Alexander did have one more question.
What's that? You're welcome.
I love your little. Yeah, I'm sure he does. Your little tribute.
We love you. Thank you for all your hard work.
It wasn't.
Oh, it's not.
It's totally not. He's the oldest too.
I'm just an astronomy nerd.
I know, but it just like it